Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Backstage Bimbo TV. It's me. Oh, I keep doing that because it's not Backstage Bimbo TV anymore, you guys. It's officially Cocktails and Rocktails with notorious groupie Allison Rouse. That's right. Couldn't fit that many characters in the actual name, so it just says Cocktails and Rocktails with Allison Rouse. But officially, it is Cocktails and Rocktails with notorious groupie me, who happens to be author of We've Got Tonight, The Life and Times of Notorious Groupie. Me as well. You can find everything down in the description from my book to my merchandise, which you guys that have the Backstage Bimbo merchandise, I'm leaving it up for a little while, so get it while you can, because it's all changing. And it's not just Backstage Bimbo TV merchandise over there. There's other really cool stuff, so go check it out, guys. I do have a Patreon as well that I am gearing towards more of a live type of situation. So thank you to everybody who supported me over there all this time while I'm figuring it out. Can't thank you enough. So now that we've started with the positivity, let's get going with today's topic here on Cocktails and Rocktails. No more Rocky Talkies, just Cocktails and Rocktails. The format is just going to be kind of, I know Sundays and Wednesdays I've done different types of episodes, but I'm just going to kind of mix it up and see what I like to put up that day. It's kind of how I do it. So, all right, today's topic. With the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial going on and the revelation of when he was in Hollywood Vampires, he was doing cocaine with Joe Perry. And it got me thinking, can rock stars ever stay sober? With a lot of things that's happened with Taylor and Chris Cornell and, Taylor Hawkins, a lot of different musicians, we're going to get into this subject today. And today's cocktail, because we're not stopping the cocktails here. Why? They're so much fun. Also, link is down in the description. This is called Off the Wagon. It's a great little bourbon-y. I didn't have a plum for garnish, so it's a sad little apple. At least a try. So anyway, everybody, fall off the wagon with me. Kick up your heels, and let's have a cocktail rocktail, shall we? Cheers, big ears. Ooh. It's really good, but it's strong. It's kind of punchy, like I would drink this at a family reunion and be drunk and probably fighting by the end of the night. No, I don't fight. No, we just yell in my family. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, okay. Our subject today, like I said, was inspired because of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial and the revelation that he was doing cocaine with Joe Perry. And now, a few days later, after this revelation, here's Steven Tyler saying, I've had a relapse. So the Toxic Twins, the Kings, who were the first, absolute first icons of rock and roll sobriety, have both been shown to not be so sober, to be falling off the wagon. Yep. And they weren't the first, and they're probably not going to be the last, because, is it rock and roll that's the temptation, or is it the stroking of the ego? And where they live, is that also a temptation as well? I don't know, but let's talk about it. So, like I said, Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, they live Connecticut, Los Angeles and stuff. They're around. So I kind of got to wondering, is Los Angeles a big, big temptation and hindrance to staying sober? I think so in a way, yes. I think that the seedy side of Hollywood that is covered up by all the pageantry and facade that we see and everything is going on, and it's a huge expectation to be the rock star at all times because you're in LA. So like I always talk about, that facade, the rock star, it has to be there at all times because LA, everybody's on at all time. The rock star never comes off unless he's truly in the privacy of his own home. And we know there's not always privacy in your own home, so you the ego and the attitude kind of carry over at all times. So we all know that LA is to feed the ego and to indulge and to say it's okay and to feed the beast, so to speak. So I think Los Angeles has a lot more temptation to fall off that wagon, and the actors and the groupies and stuff, not past or current or just, in general, in the groupies. Um, I definitely think LA has a factor to that. But at the same time, we talk about LA, we talk about Steve Jones and the Sex Pistols. That man's been sober for 30 years. I don't know how many times he's fallen off the wagon, but in the time that I've known him, I don't think he has. He had to take pain pills for a back surgery, but that's not falling off the wagon. He was really freaked out by that from what I, heard and stuff. But Steve's lived in LA and doesn't travel much outside of Los Angeles, and he has stayed sober, which is awesome. I'm so proud of that. For 30 plus years, congratulations. That takes a lot of strength, a lot of just really inner need and want, and letting go of that ego a little bit, at least a little bit. So there is an example of someone in LA who has been sober for a long time. But in general, I think LA does contribute to the temptation, to the allowance of, like I said, feeding the famous beast, so to speak, and kind of just catering to whatever whim you feel like, and being like, Johnny Depp said something to him that sobriety was not for him. So he might have been the temptation within the Joe Perry Hollywood vampires. What was it for Steven Tyler? I don't know. But it could go back to my vlog on Rockstar Insecurities. With feet like Steven Tyler's, I'd be pretty insecure. Oh my God, I'll put a link down in the description to a picture of his feet if you have not seen them. He probably can't walk. It's pretty painful. Self-medicate. I'm thinking that might be a domino effect. Probably not, and I shouldn't joke about it. Steven Tyler's badass, even when he looks like you're drunk at a brunch on Sunday. And we wish him well in his strength to get sobriety, because, it's hard, and it's hard to stay sober, and it can be more than just a mental danger to people. It becomes a physical danger after a while. I have an uncle that passed away of alcoholism. Was going to be a professional golfer, but went to work for Kennecott Mining Company. Senior Vice President of International Affairs, played golf with Colin Powell. Was married to a wonderful woman. Stuff like that. But no matter how hard he tried, 8 different rehabs, including Promises, including Betty Ford, including with the Salvation Army, stuff like that, he could not stay sober. So this is not a subject that I take on without some sort of knowledge, and of course being around the rock stars during the wildest times, and without some sort of thought and care, and that it is personal to me. So if I'm joking, it's just because I want to lighten things up. But so, what leads these people to, I think a lot of it, because you look at the pattern of like Taylor Hawkins and Chris Cornell and a lot of the Seattle musicians who did move down to Los Angeles, compared to, Kurt Cobain was in Seattle. He couldn't stay sober. Courtney Love, did she? I think she stayed more sober than not over the past decade. Was she at the time? No, absolutely not. Heroin is an evil beast. It will haunt you every day. Any addiction will haunt you every day, but heroin's a pretty severe one. So, but I don't think it's just Los Angeles. I think no matter where you are from, I talk about Glenn Tipton when he flushed his cocaine down the toilet that day, the morning after I told him about John. I thought that was the last time he ever did cocaine. I've heard no, that's not the truth. I cannot verify that because I was not there. I was just there for what I thought was the last. But no, apparently not. And was he sober? No. He still drank. He still did whatever, Like I said, apparently, according to other sources, was still doing cocaine. And, it's just a pattern and a pattern and a pattern. But it kind of goes to that ego, to the pageantry, to the facade of rock and roll, that maybe some rockers need to live up to it more than others, need to be that legend, because the Toxic Twins were legendary drug addicts and alcoholic that could bounce back and just keep going, and surprised they didn't die 12 times like Nikki Sixx did. He bounced back, but he's also been sober. Has he probably had a couple of falling off the wagons? Yes, but he's also got himself out of Los Angeles, most of the time, and has a great support system, because I think that support system really helps, and who you align yourself with as a support system really definitely helps. I definitely think Steve Jones has a great support system and has aligned himself well, and is a great support system to other people as struggling as well. Did Chris Cornell have a great support system? Yeah, probably, but had more demons that were there than the support system. Does that make sense? Taylor Hawkins, of course, all these people had incredible support systems for the most part, but those who just feed the beast, the alcoholism, the drug addicts, whatever, for the ego, versus are they feeding it because they're trying to escape something within themselves that they just have never been able to escape? Because, of course, Lane Stanley, Kurt Cobain, they obviously only found one way to escape the situation, and it was letting go of life, basically. So, and they didn't have a great support system. Mike Starr, the original bass player of Alice in Chains, he died here in Salt Lake City of a heroin overdose because he could not get over the fact that he left Lane that night, and their last words were harsh in a fight. I saw him a couple months before, and his dad was a shitty support system because his dad was an addict too, and his dad just, sobriety wasn't for him, as to where Mike Starr just was fighting the demon of guilt over Lane's death. So does that make sense? One rock star might be fighting a demon while another one might be feeding the beast of the ego and the fame and the rock and roll, and this is what it was supposed to be like. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll are a thing. So can they, between those two factors alone and trying to hide, because when you're in a certain amount of fame, and the bigger you get, the more people you have to stroke your ego, to feed the beast, to do whatever, and to tell you it's okay whether you're sober or falling off the wagon or not getting on the wagon. There's so many people who just feed that addiction and feed that ego and the insecurity and stuff. That's a horrible influence to have around you. And like I said, I think, and I hate to use Johnny Depp as an example because I'm Team Johnny. I don't see him being real crazy like that. But anyway, I think because he did say sobriety was not for him, it was kind of around the band. Joe was like, hey, I remember these days. Come on. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe Joe's been doing it all along and they just tell us they're sober. Just like some rock stars tell us they go to rehab for a certain reason when it's a whole other one. We won't get into that, though. I'm backing off on that situation. Some of you who've read my book may know who I'm talking about. If you don't, buy the book. Figure it out. Read between the lines in my book, always. There's things hidden in there that people don't know. And a certain musician who went to rehab didn't go for the reasons that they said. So, and are they going because they have a court order? I mean, I just don't think that the majority of rock stars, like, I would say out of the, let's say the 100% rock stars that get sober, I'd say probably 7% actually stay sober and don't really, they're going to have initial falling off the wagons. That's going to happen. But I think as time goes on, it gets more of a habit to stay sober and a habit to fight the daily demon, as to where the more you fall off the wagon, the more it becomes the habit to fall off the wagon and deal with things. You know, like I said, James Hetfield, as much as he's going through emotionally right now, he knows how to handle it because he took what he needed to from rehab. And that's how to handle the emotion and how to face the demon and be real and not, and how to drop that ego and the facade of the rock star. And like I said, it's what you take from rehab, whether it's going to work or not. And sometimes people just take it as a timeout, go back to normal ways after a couple years. Sometimes they really work it and really go to their AA and really stay strong in it. But, you know, Steve has most of his trauma in his life is so far in his past. Really. Because think about it, since the Pistols, since he really got sober, he's kind of progressively done better and better in his life. And look at him now. He went from naked old ladies' purses with a heroin habit on Hollywood Boulevard to having his book, a miniseries on Hulu. And he's done it all himself without the Sex Pistols, without, you know, of course he leans on the history of his Sex Pistols, but he's been able to progress, as to where maybe Joe Perry and Steven Tyler have always been kind of stuck in that Aerosmith peg. You know, they've done a lot of things, but the Toxic Twins, the fact they were toxic twins will always be part of their legacy. As to where heroin, yes it is, but the Sex Pistols is kind of the bigger part of the legacy, as to where Aerosmith and the drug problem and the Toxic Twins went hand in hand. So I don't know, that's just kind of a few thoughts of mine on can rock stars stay sober. Some of them, yes. The majority, no, I don't think so. And is everybody going to rehab for alcohol or drugs? No. There's sex addiction. There's all kinds of other addictions that they go for. So sex addicts, can they fall off the wagon? Oh yeah, just the same. You know, so I just think that there's been such a history of between the handlers, the record company people, the publicists, the assistants, the ass kissers, the hangers-on, everybody kind of feeding and catering to whatever whim, even groupies, yes, starfuckers, back lounge betties, ramp rats, whatever you want. But we've all kind of, groupies kind of, they feed the beast in the moment, like, if you're getting sober, then we're going to support that sobriety. If you're not trying to get sober, we'll party with you. But, you know, there were times I'm like, okay, cut it off. You know, groupies tend to be a little more thoughtful because they are taking care of their man on the road. So they have to be a little more conscious and really see the difference. You know, and they have to do it subtly without bitching. But I think there's just too many people that feed the beast. Other musicians, other actors, directors, people on set. There's so many people in Hollywood and other places that feed that beast. It's not just Hollywood. Like I said, Glenn Tipton in the UK, there's just so many rock stars who have said, I'm sober, I'm sober, I'm sober, and they're not. Does Lars Ulrich do cocaine anymore? Not to my knowledge. But he still, I think, has a drink and enjoys life. Just some of us grew up and we don't party like we used to. And some people have just that addictive personality. Steve Jones actually said that to me once. He was talking about, I could never live in Vegas because I have an addictive personality. I don't do drugs anymore. I don't do cocaine. He's like, I would fill my days with gambling and sex. So living in LA, he just filled it with a sex addiction. And I think even now he's kind of over that sex addiction and kind of figured out why he needed that attention and stuff. So again, kind of a different. Steve was one of the ones that took the lessons and went forward and works it every day, as to where, you know, Joe and Steve were like, yeah, I'll work it for a while. They'll go on a nice sober plane for a while. Then they'll be like, I'm cool. I can do this. I've got this handled. It'll only be for one night. And that may be true, but it may not be. It may just be the opening door to that slide down the merry-go-round into Mr. Brownstone's house, you know. Guns N' Roses song. People get my reference. Sorry, my nose gets so much stuffier the more I talk, you guys. Hopefully this will be done soon. I'll be out of Salt Lake City soon, but we'll talk about that another time. All right. So there you guys go. There's my thoughts on whether or not I think the rock stars can stay sober. A very small amount, yes, as compared to the ones that do not stay sober, but tend to keep it really private. But then, you know, you get some like the Amber Heard and Johnny, where it's revealed that, and then a few days later, Steve Perry comes out and said he's at a relapse. You know, and it makes you wonder why, and maybe we'll find out, because I think people are a lot more open these days, which I think is great and does help with sobriety, because back in the day you couldn't be as open like this. Talk about feelings. James Hetfield never did that before on stage, and he wouldn't have back in the 80s either. He would have thrown a few things around the dressing room, had a few drinks, gone on his merry way. But so, I mean, leave your thoughts down in the comments. What do you think about rock stars being able to stay sober? I don't think it is for the majority of them. For a small amount, yes, but for the majority, no. I think there's just too many people willing to cater to every whim for them not to fall off. So, there you go, guys. Again, don't forget to look down in the link in the description for today's cocktail, for the book, for the merchandise, anything else. I will put the different stuff that I use down there. So click on all those. Just go check out the merchandise. Even go click on it. You don't have to buy. I mean, I'd like it if you did, but you don't have to. Just click on all those links. All right, guys? So thank you again for all the love and support. It's great to see you. Thank you for the support with the awesome name change and the suggestions. I especially loved the one about the Monkees song. That was awesome. Thanks, dear, for that. And we'll see you on the next episode of Cocktails and Rock Tales here with notorious groupie Allison Rouse. Don't forget to hit the subscribe, hit the like, and hit my bells. All right, guys. See you next time. Cheers, big ears.